Alright, Lions, so today we just got done summoning 10,000 orbs on the Burn the Witch banner. I did collect all 3 of them. I still recommend checking out the video though. But for today's video, we are here to focus on the newest and powerful characters in the game. Firstly, starting off with Bruno. Now, Bruno is without a doubt one of the better characters in the game, and we're going to hopefully demonstrate that in this video. Bruno is a heart, no affiliation character with the Hollow, and also a Sparta kill ability. 2 pretty good killers, but the biggest thing here is that we have finally gotten a new heart Hollow killer. If you actually look at other options when it comes to Hollow killers, you'll see that there's barely any good ones. Including Bruno, we've literally gotten 7 Hollow killers for the heart attribute since the 4th anniversary. That was almost 4 years ago. So the heart attribute, despite having a lot of competition, has desperately needed a character like this Bruno having this particular Hollow killer. With that said though, having a look at Bruno as a character, he's basically designed just to get the gauge effect off instantly, because he is a gauge character. You'll see when he does complete the gauge, he gets 100% Berserker and also decreases damage taken by 20%. And looking at the gauge effect itself, you'll see here that when he starts a game outside of Brave Battles, he's going to start the gauge with 70% full. That's really good. When the gauge does get full, it's reducing his strong attack cooldown by 30%. It's healing him by 30%, and then he also gets the spiritual pressure boost. That, in combination with the fact that he has Frenzy +2 and a 40% Berserker built in, this character is hitting hard, but then hitting ridiculously hard when he does have the gauge effect active. So let's try him out. Alright, so jumping into single player IT then, I absolutely adore this character's visuals and also model. In-game art looks nice too. Let's have a look at the strong attacks. So his SA1 is going to be a vacuum vortex in front of him. Pretty good SA1. It does have a pretty decent amount of range to it. His SA2 is going to be a 960 AoE in front of him. So his first 2 strong attacks have AoEs in front of him, which is actually really good. And then his SA3 is just going to be a standard full screen strong attack. He does have Havoc, so the range on attacks are actually pretty good, and it's also good for doing consistent damage. Now, what you're going to notice straight away is that within the first room, we already have the boost active because we start off with the gauge at 70% completion. It's really good, especially for single player content like this, for example, you know, where it's naturally easier when compared to co-op content, so you actually get to use the boost quite often, and you're essentially able to complete the gauge with just using 3 strong attacks, which is really good. And what you're seeing here is that we're able to get the gauge off twice in a single player quest. That is something that I don't think any gauge character can actually do, so I really do like that with the way they designed him. He's able to get the gauge off more often than the other gauge characters, and that's important because he is in a way designed to have the gauge effect off. That's where he gets most of his damage. Without the gauge, it's only Frenzy +2 with a 40% Berserker, but that's still great. That is still great, but when he gets the gauge effect, it's Frenzy +2, 140% Berserker, and then also a 50% stat boost to his spiritual pressure stat. It is absolutely insane the damage this character can deal, especially when the gauge is active, and he, just from that first run, has no problem filling up that gauge. But let's try that one more time. Can we actually play faster? We're about to find out. What I do like about him, which is definitely worth mentioning, is the mobility that he actually has for the character itself, right? Since he wants to fill the gauge fast, it's actually really good that he has Long Stride built into the character, because that allows him to actually take use of the limited cooldown that is the gauge effect, right? We only have 10 seconds while this gauge is active to do the most of our damage, so the fact that we're able to go from wave to wave is actually really good. Let's actually go here, use our Soul Bomb, lovely. Use our SA2 there, gauge is active, and then basically all we have to do now is use 2 strong attacks to completely wipe out the room. I know it is single player IT, it is easy in nature when compared to co-op, and we are going to take him into co-op in a second, but look how quick he's going through this quest. Only SP10, he's 1 out of 5, it gets significantly better than this, but he doesn't even have killer here. This is something that you usually do when you have killer, he just doesn't care. Let's try that one more time though, let's see if we can actually get a faster run here. Overall, just from the few runs that I actually played thus far, I'm just really liking the gameplay. The way he's designed, despite being a gauge character, he's actually really fast in the content he wants to be used in. Let's use our SA3 there. We actually killed the enemies down there. That's actually really good. In this case, we can go down here, use our SA2. I guess use our SA1 there, and then Soul Bomb here. And essentially now, SA2 into the 3. The gauge is going to be up when we use our SA1. Go to Uryu, and there he goes down. Really, really good, smooth gameplay from this character. And it is worth mentioning to you, he does have some good survivability, right? He isn't all about damage. Damage is his big factor here, but he can heal himself up with the gauge, and he's also the first Burn the Witch character to have any type of immunity, in this case, immunity to every status summon. If this isn't one of the best characters in the game, I generally don't know what is. A 30-second clear time in solo IT when he doesn't even have killer is exceptional for a character like this. Alright, now it's time to officially check out Bruno in co-op IT, where keep in mind, he's technically not supposed to be used to in a way, right? He definitely can be used to, as you'll see here, right? He doesn't have an increased chance to inflict status damage. He doesn't have killer here, so this usually isn't the ideal situation. But what you're seeing is that within the first room, we already have the gauge full, and we were able to benefit from it massively because we were already able to go through that entire first stage. And in this case, we're already got the gauge active again. This is actually really good. Strong attacks are back. That's nice. Wow. Let's use our SA1 there. Go down here. Position ourselves properly. SA3 did a decent amount of damage. So we really are brute forcing our way through this. And I think it's going to be a lot more impressive when he has killer. But even then, this is still impressive. While it hasn't been too bad, the biggest gripe with gauge characters is that they don't really get to use the gauge that often. Bruno is not having that issue. We're already going through, we're on the third stage and we already have the gauge active 3 times. That's really good. Unfortunately, it looks like we're about to go into the next stage while the gauge isn't active, and then to use our SA3 on that enemy. Unfortunately, did take a bit of damage there, so we're going to retry this once more. The gauge is back though for the 4th time. SA1 on that lad. Look at that damage. Look at that damage when the gauge is full. And then we get to go in this room. And by the time we go into the next stage, we're actually going to build up. So let me actually use my Soul Bomb here. Didn't do that much damage. We have attention time, which is understandable. But we're mainly doing it to build up the gauge. Because the idea here is that we get to build up the gauge and then nuke this stage like that. Look at that. SA2. And potentially go into the fan room with the gauge active. And maybe do a lot of damage to most of the mobs. So SA2 there. Look at that. SA3. Look how much damage we're doing on those strong attacks. That is amazing. And with the gauge, we're able to get back up to full stamina. SA2 to wipe up those mobs. And now we just have to use a few more strong attacks on these lads. This was a terrible run, I'm not going to lie. Many on my behalf, though. We didn't actually do what we were supposed to do. We took a lot of unneeded damage. But I'm going to include that. That was a bad example. I think this is a good example of a bad run of me being a tad bit careless, taking damage when I didn't need to. A lot of times, though, we were able to get back up to full stamina. So you can see here that survivability is not an issue. Whenever we took damage, we got back to full stamina when the gauge was full. We were able to get the gauge effect off multiple times in that particular quest, and we were still able to get a respectable clay time. I mean, 2 minutes and 23 seconds is actually pretty good for a 1 out of 5 character that doesn't even have killer effect here. But let's see if our second attempt can be a lot more successful in the way I actually do my strong attacks. We'll see how it does go. Let's use our nurturing on here just to push back the enemy a tad bit, and then we can go here. SA2 on that, lads. Into the 3, already to the next stage. And with this strong attack, we're about to go into the gauge effect once more. There we go. Lovely. Unfortunately, missed my strong attack. I'm plebbing right now, but it's fine. We can afford to pleb with Bruno because he allows us to. And I'm actually kind of hoping I can get the gauge effect off while going against the bosses. That'll be ideal here. Doesn't look like it, though. We keep getting the gauge effect so many times, we can't really get it against the bosses. Unless we can get it again in, like, the next 20 seconds. Maybe it's possible. Actually, hold on. If we do that, we did some damage there. That's not too bad. Again, with the long stride, we can just quickly get out of the combat. These rooms are actually very linear in nature. So the fact that we're able to get in and out without taking any time of damage is actually quite impressive. Masaki, being the annoyance that she is, constantly using her shield. But even though we had to use a few strong attacks on those lads, it's fine. Because now we get to go in here. And watch this. SA3 goes off. Good amount of damage. Somehow dodged that. Don't know how I did it there. But we were able to get through that quest relatively quick for the most part. And then now SA1 on those lads. Couple nat hits, why not? And then let's use our Soul Bomb. That should go into the next wave. It should weaken them with weakened defense. And then we get to use our SA3. Look at that. SA2. And then the SA1, and they go down. Okay, hold on. We actually missed it. How do we mess up? How do we mess up? You can see that even though we didn't have attention time, even though we had no killer, we were still able to go through the final room relatively quick because with the Soul Bomb, it fills our gauge up to 50%, right? And that allowed us to use 1 strong attack, and we were doing some great damage on those strong attacks. In this case, a better run, 2 minutes and 6 seconds, but let's try that once more. Attempt number 3, though. Let's see how this one does go down. So I'm going to use our SA2 there. Couple nat hits just to build up the gauge, right? Might as well. And then we use our SA1. And in that case, going to the SA3 on that way is going to be really good. Even though we changed our strong attacks for the most part in what we're actually doing, it's still somewhat similar in the way we're going to go into the next stage when the gauge just wears off. Definitely important to just spam your strong attacks with this character. You don't really want to save strong attacks because you want to fill the gauge up really quick, right? And that in doing so is also going to be, you know, recovering your strong attacks even faster. So you get to spam them even more. Let's use our SA1 there. And then SA3 on these guys. There we go. That feels good. And then SA1 on them. So already into stage 3, gauge effect has been used twice now. Let's just use our nurturing even when we aren't even attacking those enemies. This one's looking actually pretty good because it looks like we might actually go into the next wave with all of our gauge ready, right? So let's use our SA3 now. There we go. Couple of nat hits just because we can. SA2 on him. SA1 on those. And then SA3, look at that. That's way better. We were actually able to get the gauge off there against those mobs. Many of those first set of bosses, right? And since we can even just use our nurturing to fill it up relatively quick too. Let's use our SA2 there, so we actually are able now to get off against both bosses. So SA2 into the 3. Look at that. That's beautiful. Can we actually use our Sobon right away? Let's do it. Look at that. SA1. Look at that. That's really good. Okay, hold on. So, this is actually going pretty well. Probably our best run yet. Gauges once more off. And there we go. SA1 finishes up those mobs. That is really a good, smooth, fun, powerful, amazing. How many more adjectives can I throw in? I don't know, but Bruno is proving himself to be a really fun and powerful character. This was a way better run. In this case, we did get a sub 2 minute play time. 1 minute and 52 seconds is actually really impressive. And with that, Bruno is essentially proving himself here to be a brute force type of character, right? Even with no increased chance to inflict status wounds or pierce iron skin, he's still able to get a respectable play time in co-op IT by himself, special move level 1 out of 5. Let's try him out in the Fishbone D epic raid though. He does actually have killer here. So we're looking at 30k per hit on the SA1. His SA3 is doing 100k on that 30. That's really good. Okay. And now with the gauge active, how much damage was that? 200k on a hit per hit? With the weakened defense? Oh my god. Oh my god, was that 300k? Nah, there's no way, surely not. I don't know, but we're able to do basically what? Upwards to 20 million damage in almost less than a minute. And again, really impressive here that the gauge effect is already back. That's the best thing about him, right? Gauge effect is just constantly being able to be spammed here, even in short form content. We were only in that quest for 35 seconds, and we were able to get the gauge effect, the benefit from the gauge effect 2 times. So you can see there, Bruno basically just did 20 million damage in 34 seconds. I'm not going to lie though, it does feel kind of weird to have a character like this where most of their damage comes from their strong attacks. I mean, that is most characters to be fair, but Bruno in particular is just doing so much damage on his strong attacks when compared to the Sobom. The Sobom is minuscule when compared to the strong attacks. Like, look at this. 250k per hit. With Frenzy plus 2, that was what? 750k on our strong attack? That is mental. Let's just use our nurturing to get the gauge up once more. Unfortunately, did take a bit of damage there, but we're back up to full stamina. We're back up to full stamina. A bit of a slower run there, but still, damage output is not an issue. That's the main thing about this Bruno. I am very impressed. And remember, he has 2 killers too, Hollow and also Spada. We can't showcase him in Guild Quest right now, but he is going to be a really good Guild Quest character because you are able to get that gauge effect off, again, within the first, 5 seconds. At the same time, he's also an arena character too, so you can take him out to there. This Bruno has a lot of usage going for him. An amazing character and going to be one of my go-to hard characters in the game, especially with the fact that he does have Hollow Killer. He has a lot going for him. You can take him as an IT, IZ, Epic Raids, Guild Quest, and he is going to be performing amazing. Damage output is great. Survivability is great. The heals, the immunities. And it is really fun to play with a gauge character like this where they're able to get the benefit from that gauge effect more often than not. You know, the other gauge characters, Uryu, Tosha, and even Aizen, they can get the gauge effect off quite often too, but Bruno is just getting it off more often than not. With that said though, hope you guys enjoyed this showcase. In the comments below, let me know how you guys feel about this character. I've been having a blast playing with him, and I'm definitely going to continue showcasing him on the channel over the next couple of so weeks. Try him out in Arena, and also of course try him out in Guild Quest too, just to see how he performs there. With that said though, I'll see you guys next time. Take care and peace.